following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network. The 2024 NBA season is officially in the books, and the play-in tournament is set and ready to go, as well as the top 6 seeds in each conference. We're going to go over all of that today here on Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network. Now, let's start off with a complete rundown of the standings in each conference. In the Eastern Conference, as I said last time, it's basically Boston and everybody else. The Boston Celtics finished the season with the best record in the entire league at 64 wins and only 18 losses. Show me a team that's going to beat them in 7 games. I don't see it. Not even Denver. I don't see it. The New York Knicks, number 2 at 50 wins and 32 losses. Milwaukee at number 3 at 49 and 33. Cleveland at number 4, 48 and 34. Number 5, Orlando, 47 and 35. Indiana also at 47 and 35, but because of the tiebreakers, they're at number 6. Philadelphia, same thing. Tiebreakers, sucks to be them. Just the comeback wasn't enough in time. They're at number 7 at 47 and 35. Miami at 46 and 36. Chicago at 39 and 43 is making the play-in at under 500. Atlanta, 36 and 46, barely makes the play-in, which means 11 through 15 are the Brooklyn Nets at 32 and 50, Toronto at 25 and 57, Charlotte at 21 and 61, Washington at 15 and 67, and the Detroit Pistons finish, as I predicted on this podcast, with the worst record in the entire league at 14 wins, 68 losses. That's rough, but not entirely unexpected. In the West, it's a little bit more competitive at the top. You had kind of a horse race, basically, to determine who's going to be the top seed, but barely edging out, thanks to a tiebreaker, the Oklahoma City Thunder at 57 and 25. Now, I do have some thoughts on the Thunder and this insane meteoric rise that they basically have been on ever since Sam Presti ultimately decided to go the way of hoarding draft picks. I'll probably go into those thoughts at some point within the next couple weeks. But Oklahoma City, number 1 at 57-25. Also at 57-25 is number 2, the defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. Minnesota barely misses out on that fun and finishes number 3 at 56-26. The Los Angeles Clippers at number 4, 51 and 31, closing out their stay at Staples Center in style, I see. Dallas at number 5, 50 and 32. Number 6, Phoenix, 49 and 33, misses the play-in thanks to a tiebreaker. Unfortunately, New Orleans didn't. The New Orleans Pelicans at 49 and 33. The Lakers at 47 and 35 are going to be the number 8 seed. Number 9 and 10 are tied I don't know necessarily if tiebreakers or anything is even going to matter at this point because the 9 and 10 seeds play each other. I'll get into that here in a minute. But Sacramento and Golden State each finished with an identical record of 46 and 36, which means 11 through 15 miss out on the playoffs entirely. Houston, 41 and 41, right at 500. The Utah Jazz at 31 and 51. Memphis, 29 and 55. The San Antonio Spurs at 22 and 60. And the Portland Trailblazers finished with the worst record in the West and the third worst record overall at 21 and 61. So, with that rundown out of the way, here are the matchups for the play-in. In the Eastern Conference, you have the number 7 Philadelphia 76ers and the number 8 Miami Heat. The winner of that matchup, it's a one-game matchup, unlike the rest of the playoffs, will face New York in the first round of the playoffs. I've got Philadelphia. I think Joel Embiid is going to be too much. I think him coming back has really sparked a fire with the Sixers, and I just don't see Miami, striking lightning twice in a row. The number 9 seed Chicago Bulls will face the number 10 team Atlanta Hawks. The winner of that matchup will face whoever doesn't win between Philadelphia and Miami to determine who faces Boston. And whoever loses between those two, they're out. I don't know why Chicago doesn't impress me. Then again, Atlanta doesn't impress me. I don't think it really matters who's winning this matchup. I think whoever wins this matchup is going to lose to Miami in the next matchup. But if you want my official take on it, I got Atlanta. I just don't. I don't see anything special about the Bulls, and I think Trae Young is going to have a field day. So it'll be Boston and Miami and New York and Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs, the actual playoffs. In the Western Conference, you have the number 7 seed New Orleans Pelicans and the number 8 seed Los Angeles Lakers. Whoever wins that matchup gets to play the defending champions in the first round. Good luck with that. Just because I can see him going all out just so he can stroke his ego one last time, I see LeBron single-handedly carrying the Lakers past the Pelicans. I see the Lakers going against the Nuggets. They're going to regret it, but they're going to do it. Which means the Pelicans will have to play the winner of Sacramento Golden State to determine who will face Oklahoma City in the first round. And whoever loses between Golden State and Sacramento, they're out. That's a big reason why I have the door open. Those of you that are watching on video know exactly what I'm talking about. I see Golden State. I don't know if Sacramento has what it takes. Again, going back to the whole lightning striking twice in a row thing. I don't see Golden State losing this one. So it'll be New Orleans versus Golden State, and I think New Orleans barely ekes it out. And they're going to face the Thunder in the first round. So with that said, the matchups in the first round will be Oklahoma, in my opinion. I mean, the 1 and 8, 2 and 7 matchups are my opinion alone. Those are not yet set in stone. What is set in stone is Minnesota will face Phoenix in the first round, and the Clippers will face the Dallas Mavericks. In the East, it'll be Milwaukee and then Indiana. And it'll be Cleveland and Orlando. How's that for a first round matchup? So the way I see the playoffs shaping out is this. I see Oklahoma beating New Orleans. I see Denver easily disposing of the Lakers. The Lakers just don't have an answer for Nikola Jokic. Then again, very few people do. And I think LeBron and or AD will get hurt in that 7-game matchup. So that'll put an end to this nonsense with the Lakers once and for all. But Minnesota and Phoenix is a tough one because I don't know. Like, Phoenix to me strikes me as someone that has way too much firepower. I mean, you've got KD. Granted, he's older, but he's still KD. You've got Bradley Beal. You've got Devin Booker. You've got all this firepower on the Phoenix Suns, and that's going to neutralize Minnesota's strength, Minnesota's biggest strength, which is their interior defense, led by Rudy Gobert. And I'll get to Gobert here in a minute. But I also see Minnesota. They have their own share of firepower. I mentioned Gobert. I know all he does is dunk. I also see Minnesota. They have Anthony Richardson. No, I'm getting my Anthonys mixed up. Hold on. Anthony Edwards. That's the guy. Yeah. I'm thinking of the Indianapolis quarterback. But anyway. No, Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. That's their own fair share of firepower. I see it being a very close, contested 7-game matchup, but I do see Minnesota pulling it off in the end. Dallas and the Clippers. I'm going to go with Dallas because I don't know if this experiment with the Clippers is going to work in the playoffs. I mean, Russell Westbrook is still Russell Westbrook, and James Harden is still James Harden. And yes, they've got Playoff P, which is the stupidest name I've ever heard in my life. Actually, no, I take that back. Swaggy P is still the worst name I've ever heard in my life. Playoff P is, it's in the top 10. Or bottom 10, I guess you could say. But I don't see the Clippers beating the Mavericks. The Mavericks are just red hot right now. I mean, Luka Doncic looks like he's from another planet. Kyrie Irving seems to have turned back the hands of time. And, they're surrounded by enough good support players that I think Dallas is going to eke this one out. Again, I'm going 7 games. If you want my official stance on Oklahoma City versus New Orleans, I'm going to maybe give that 6 games. Just because of Oklahoma's inexperience. And as far as Denver versus the Lakers go, Nuggets in 5. We'll go Nuggets in 5. That seems fair. Boston versus Miami. I know Miami was like the Cinderella team last year, and they ended up beating Boston on their way to the finals. I just don't see it happening this year. Like I said, I don't see lightning striking twice. I see Boston in 6. New York versus Philadelphia. I'm actually going to go with Philadelphia. Again, I don't know what it is about the Knicks. I just don't see them as being all that impressive come playoff time. So I see Philadelphia, we'll say in 6. How's that? Milwaukee versus Indiana's tough. I want to say Milwaukee because of Giannis and because of Damian Lillard. But I can't because of Doc Rivers. And especially if this team goes up 3-1 against Indiana and loses, how can Doc Rivers ever be taken seriously ever again in the NBA? Ever. I actually will go with Milwaukee in 6. As long as Doc Rivers does not go up 3-1, he should be fine. 3-2, okay. 3-0, now we're talking. 3-1, no. I've got Cleveland over Orlando. We'll say in 5. There's something about Donovan Mitchell come playoff time. I don't know what it is, but then again, not that that's going to do a lot of good because Boston's going to just clean the floor with Cleveland. We'll say in 6. Milwaukee versus Philadelphia. I actually have Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is this year's Cinderella story. I think Philadelphia is going to take Milwaukee out after they take New York out. We'll say 76ers in 7. This will be the 3-1 matchup for Doc Rivers. In the Western Conference semis, I've got Denver over Minnesota by 6. Or in 6, I should say. And I only say that because of Minnesota's inexperience. Now, does a part of me want to see Rudy Gobert reach the Western Conference Finals before the Utah Jazz do? Yes. Is it realistically going to happen? Doesn't look like it will. But I do see Denver having a tough time containing Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, and I apologize for getting his name confused with someone else's, but he has really impressed me this year. He has really come out and become like a major star. Him and Indiana's Tyrese Halliburton both. You know the old saying, the kids are going to be all right? I think these kids are going to be all right. But it's just not his time this year. Maybe next year. But Denver's too hot right now. So Denver in 6. I've actually got Dallas upsetting the Thunder in the second round. And again, it goes back to Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic has never been this far before. But Kyrie has. He has a ring. That championship experience matters. And Oklahoma, just like Minnesota, just doesn't have the experience in the playoffs. So I'm going with Dallas in 7. That's going to set up Dallas versus Denver in the Western Conference Finals. I've got Denver. Again, too much experience, too much firepower, too much momentum. It's just too much. So Denver will go back to the NBA Finals. We'll say they finish Dallas off in 6. Boston versus Philadelphia. I've got Boston. Boston's, again, way too much experience, way too much firepower, way too much momentum. 64-18, I'd say that's pretty good momentum. So Boston is going to end up taking Philadelphia out in 7. So that leaves Denver versus Boston in the NBA Finals, and I see Boston bringing home banner number 18. We'll say in 7. And if you want my thoughts on who I think would be the Finals MVP, I am going to go with either Drew Holiday or Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum seems like the safe pick, but Drew Holiday seems like a workhorse type of pick, kind of like the Andre Iguodala pick, you know? So, with the playoffs out of the way, I want to kind of give you my thoughts on who I think is going to be the award winners this year. As far as MVP is concerned, that's going to be tough, because you've got a lot of good players on a lot of good teams. But if you want me to just give you a very solid pick on who I think should be the MVP, I think it's Jokic. I think, for me, MVP stands for most valuable player. Not the best player on the best team, not the best player in the league. Who is the one guy that if you took off of that particular team, that team is dead? Or at the very least, not nearly as good as they once were. I don't see how Jokic doesn't fit that bill. If Jokic is not healthy and Jokic is not playing as well as he is with Denver, Denver barely makes the play-in. I mean, you can take Julius Randle off the Knicks, you can take Jason Tatum off the Celtics, you can take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander off the Thunder, you can take... I mean, you have taken, at spurts throughout the season, both Giannis and Damian Lillard off of the Bucks. You can even take Anthony Edwards off the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I think those teams will not be as fine as they are now, but they won't be in the lottery. I think Jokic is clear-cut MVP. Rookie of the Year, I don't see how you give it to anybody but Victor Wembanyama. I will admit freely on this podcast that I was wrong about Victor Wembanyama. That kid is fucking amazing. Like, I've seen some pretty damn good players in my time. I'm old enough to remember Michael Jordan. I'm old enough to remember Larry Bird. I remember when Shaq first came into the league before he got bloated and, you know, his contract followed suit. You know, back when he was a rookie with the Magic. I remember, you know, Tim Duncan when he first came to the league. I remember LeBron James when he first came into the league. I think, and I don't mean to do this to set the guy up for failure, but I think Victor Wembanyama is as good as any of those players that I just mentioned. Well, okay, maybe not Jordan and Bird, but I think he's as good as Duncan. I think he's just as good as Shaq. He is going to be a generational problem for a lot of teams for years to come. It wasn't this year because he just doesn't have the right, you know, support group around him. I mean, he's basically playing with a G League team. I mean, if we're being honest, that's what San Antonio is. They're a G League team. Now, in a couple of years, when they have the right pieces around him, maybe they can get back to where they were during the Tim Duncan days. But right now, it just isn't happening. But Victor Wembanyama clearly is the Rookie of the Year. It's not even close. I mean, I guess you could maybe make an argument for Chet Holmgren. In any other year, he is my Rookie of the Year. Just not this year. It's Victor. It's Wemby. Everybody knows it's Wemby. Bim, 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 bim. Okay, never mind. I'm leaving that in, by the way. That's not a blooper. I'm leaving that in. Do not edit this out. Okay. As far as Defensive Player of the Year, and this is why I mentioned Rudy Gobert. Again, Rudy Gobert in any other year, and it has happened in the past, is my Defensive Player of the Year. Because he's helped single-handedly turn the Minnesota Timberwolves into a power defensively. He is an entire NBA team's defense these days. I mean, it's always been that way. Even going back to his days with the Jazz. But especially this year, he has really stepped his game up. But if you look statistically across the board, Victor Wembanyama owns that category. So not only do I give Victor Wembanyama the Rookie of the Year, I give him Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sorry, Rudy. You're my guy. But I can't do it. I can't. That's the guy. Coach of the Year. Again, it's easy to say, well, Boston's the best team in the league, so Joe Mazzulla gets the Coach of the Year. It's easy to say that. But Boston's already been a powerhouse. Boston is most likely going back to the Eastern Conference Finals for, what is it, the third or fourth year in a row? They've been there with different coaches. They were there with Brad Stevens. They were there with Ime Udoka. They've been there with Joe Mazzulla. So it's not like that they're, inexperienced or that nobody expected them to make it back to this point. I think most people, they're being honest. Once they made the trade for Jrue Holiday, and I even made the comment, in passing when they made that trade, Boston became the best team in the East. Period. Everybody expected them to get to this point. Everybody expected, except for me, of course, the Knicks to get to this point. Everybody expected Milwaukee to get to this point, not because of who's coaching them, but in spite of who's coaching them. If there was a reverse Coach of the Year, I would give it to Doc Rivers. Actually, if there was a reverse Coach of the Year, I would give it to Giannis Antetokounmpo. The dude has gone through three different head coaches this year alone. And they're still the third seed. That's pretty damn impressive. But no, I think for Coach of the Year, it's the one guy that's coached their team up to surpass literally everybody's expectations. And I don't know if you can realistically give that award, as I'm pulling up the roster now. I don't know if you can give it to anybody but Mark Daigneault. I hope I'm not butchering that name too badly. The coach for Oklahoma City. That's the Coach of the Year for me. Because no one expected the Oklahoma City Thunder to be this good this quickly. I just don't know how you can say that. I don't know how you can say that. Now, would I give executive of the year to whoever the executive is in Oklahoma City? No. Again, circling back to the whole Drew Holiday thing, I think Brad Stevens in Boston deserves all the credit. Here's a guy who saw Milwaukee trading for Damian Lillard. Everybody gushing over, oh, it's going to be amazing watching Giannis and Damian Lillard in Milwaukee. They're going to go all the way to the finals. And Brad Stevens looks at everybody like, am I a fucking joke to you? It would have been easy for Brad Stevens to panic, hit the panic button, and be like, oh, fuck, we're screwed. But he didn't do that. He was very cold. He was very calculated, and he was very methodical in how he responded. He didn't have to make the splashiest trade. He didn't have to even make, the trade that all the ESPN talking heads would be like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to go after Chris Paul. He didn't have to go after LeBron James. He didn't have to go after Trae Young or DeJounte Murray or any of these other guys. No, he just saw Milwaukee trade one of the best defensive point guards in the entire league to a bottom dweller like Portland. Called Portland and said, listen, we know this guy's not long for the world where you guys are. You're a rebuilding team. We're a playoff contender. Let us take him off your hands. We'll give you a couple draft picks. And Portland's like, cool. Have fun. And that's exactly what Boston's done. They've had fun. So Brad Stevens gets my Executive of the Year award. Sixth man, I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't really followed, a lot of basketball these days. But I would probably venture a guess to say that Russell Westbrook is going to win Sixth Man of the Year. Which is a very weird statement. If you had told me 2 years ago that I would be on this podcast giving Sixth Man of the Year kudos to Russell Westbrook, I'd be like, how much alcohol have you drank? And do you have any left over? Because you are clearly drunk. And no, I am not drunk right now. I am drinking coffee. So I guess you could say I'm doing this podcast with a clear and sound mind, or whatever. Yeah, I'm drinking coffee. My brain is scatterbrained. But no, I would say you were out of your mind if you had told me 2 years ago that I would give my Sixth Man of the Year to Russell Westbrook, because number one, his ego would not allow it to happen. When they first made the announcement that they were bringing in James Harden, my initial reaction was, that's going to last long. Sarcastically saying that. Because you have 4 alpha males, or 4 guys that think they're alpha males, on the same team. There's only so many basketballs to go around. This is why you never see anybody trying something like this, because it never works. It didn't work for the Lakers back in 2004. It didn't work for anybody else. The only reason it worked for the Chicago Bulls back in the 90s is because they had Phil Jackson, and they had, a good support group that basically said, listen, we know these guys have massive egos, but we're going to work with them anyway. Los Angeles right now, the Clippers, those 4 guys all have insanely massive egos, and there's not a single leader on that team. There's not a single Michael Jordan type leader on that team that basically can say, Y'all shut the fuck up. Give me the ball. I will take care of this. Kawhi is supposed to be that guy, but he's clearly demonstrated that he's not. Paul George is clearly supposed to be that guy, but he's clearly not. James Harden can barely stay with any one particular team long enough to be that guy. And it was clear to me that Russell Westbrook was never going to be that guy because he was once that guy in Oklahoma City. And look where that got him. So, when they first made that move for James Harden, I wrote the Clippers off. Go back and listen. I declared them DOA. So, when they first made the announcement that Russell Westbrook was moving to the bench, I was floored. I was stunned. Because, and not only that, my initial thought was, how in the hell did they get him to agree to that? No, he requested it. Russell Westbrook, Mr. Massive Ego, Mr. Triple Double, requesting to go to the bench? Am I living in the Twilight Zone? So no, I think his ultimate sacrifice has really helped the Clippers, in this dark time. It could have been easy for the Clippers to just say, you know what, this isn't going to work. We're just going to let you guys go at the end of the season, and we're just going to take the L going into our shiny new stadium. But no, they made it work. Russell Westbrook made it work. And I give him all the credit in the world for it. So he is my sixth man of the year. Most improved player. Again, I haven't really been following up on basketball as much as I should. But I would probably venture a guess. I don't know if I can say Tyrese Halliburton. Because Tyrese Halliburton, he's only now coming out as like an amazing player. But he's always been that guy. Well, he's not always been, this good. But he's always been good. He's always been a good player. Someone that can, basically take the reins and say, give me the ball, I've got this. So I don't know if I can necessarily say that, Tyrese Halliburton's going to be that guy. I would actually give the award to Orlando's Franz Wagner. Because I think Franz has helped make that Orlando team, pretty damn good. I don't know, as good as, some of the others in the Eastern Conference, but he's definitely helped. So, those are my award thoughts. Who do I think gets the number one overall pick in the NBA draft? Tough. It's tough. But a part of me thinks San Antonio's going to get it again. I think the NBA is too invested in seeing Victor Wembanyama succeed. I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say that. But is it really a theory? Think about it for a second. Anyway, like I said, I'll probably do another Sports Central podcast sometime within the next couple weeks. Just kind of going over my thoughts about Oklahoma City and about how they got to this point, and basically the gold mine that they struck with both Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren. And I'll probably, with most of the summer basically being like a dead zone type of thing, I want to preface by saying I do not follow baseball at all. I don't even know, I mean, aside from Shohei Ohtani, I don't know anybody who's on the Dodgers. I don't really follow Major League Soccer all that much. Like, I mean, I guess I could become a soccer head. I used to really like watching soccer on TV when it was like the World Cup and the Olympics and all that. But the reason I mention this is because at some point in the summer, maybe sooner than that, I will probably be bringing back What If. I know that I got some tepid reaction as far as my previous What If scenarios. If you don't remember, go back and listen. I did a scenario where Houston drafted Michael Jordan instead of Hakeem Olajuwon. And I did one on, what if the Jazz never signed Gail Goodrich? The New Orleans Jazz, not the Utah Jazz. What if the New Orleans Jazz never signed Gail Goodrich and then never had to surrender their first round pick to the Lakers, which would then turn into Magic Johnson? I did a whole episode about that. I may do one on Shaq. I may do one on Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan will be an interesting one because there's a lot of moving pieces. I remember everything that led up to that draft lottery back in, I think it was like 98, 97, 98, somewhere in that range. But that was when I was really at my peak in terms of my basketball fandom. So I'll probably do one on that. I may or may not do one on LeBron. That's to be determined. But just giving you guys a heads up on that. That's all the time I have today. Be sure to hit that like button on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That way you are notified every time that a new video drops. If you are listening to this on Spotify, leave a review. Reviews are open and reviews are awesome. I love hearing what you guys think about the new format. I love hearing what you guys think about the show in general. If you're watching this on Facebook, like, share, comment, share with friends, share with family. I will also want to thank you for listening, for watching, for downloading, for donating, for doing everything you can to help this train moving along. As you may have noticed, your efforts are not going unnoticed, so thank you. And until next time, be sure to include your closing tax. Thanks.
This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.